continually fascinated by yellow birch. Yellow birch is the tree that, because of its roots, it looks like it's climbing. It looks like it's eating boulders. It's like an octopus. The
it's
way,
a hand.
yeah. And oftentimes they're stilted up. They're like 4 or 5 feet. The tree is 4 or 5 feet off the ground with all its roots going down from 4 or 5 feet down into the ground, because they germinate often on logs. And if a big old tree fell down and this yellow birch germinated on it, then when the tree finally, decomposes, the yellow birch roots are still there, as if the tree were still underneath it. Or I've seen big boulders like go, roll out from under a birch, and they're halfway gone and the birch is still hanging on to them. But they're so alive to me, and you can sort of.
Wherever you go in the Catskills, you could look down and imagine glaciers below you.
I think the weather challenges on this incident were particularly difficult.
Whereas Panson Mountain is totally opposite. It's a mountain on top of a crater.
It was really the development of New York State. Catskills were responsible.
Yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Line, the Catskills. All right, what's going on, Marc? How you doing, sir?
I'm great. How are you doing, Dash?
All right. Actually, a little sad. I was just find out that the monarch butterfly has become endangered. Did you hear about this?
Yeah, I mean, they've been having a lot of trouble. The monarchs have been having a lot of trouble for quite a few years. And I did read something recently that it's looking worse.
Yeah. What from your profession, what can we do to help?
Yeah, that's a great question. Monarchs could become the bluebirds of the Lepidoptera Lepidoptera beings. Lepidoptera is butterflies. I forget if it's a family or an order. I think it's a family. Bluebirds are doing pretty well because people put out bluebird boxes, and they were threatened at one point. Monarchs are maybe a slightly more difficult, hurdle. But what we can do, and what I do at home, and what we do at the Arboretum, is we plant milkweeds.
Nice. And
it's important to plant milkweeds that are local to your region, because the monarchs, as they migrate, they're amazing, because I guess it's on the way up. They're laying eggs and hatching, and new monarchs are developing, and then they fly the rest of the way north. So there's a multi-generational trip north and then a one-generational trip south. That's my understanding. Have your callers call in to dispute me. But so you need to plant milkweeds that are local to your region, species, because the monarchs are depending on them at a certain time. And if you plant a species of milkweed that, say, is native to Texas, it's not going to be blooming and developing, and it could throw their rhythm off. It could throw their migration time off, and it could bloom too early for them or too late for them. But if we all plant a lot of milkweeds, the most common one is common milkweed, and it's a lot of people consider it a weed, and it is weedy. But you put it out in your meadow and just let it take off. And the beautiful ones that people plant in their gardens are swamp milkweed, which is for wet areas, butterfly weed, which is a beautiful orange. There are others like world milkweed. I've heard that world milkweed might not be as helpful, but just plant milkweeds that are local to your region, and it's possible we can help. There's down in Mexico, I read that they did preserve a lot of the forest. Of course, that's always, you never know how well things are being protected.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a big ordeal, is the monarchs, the bees, everything like that. The monarchs were dependent on them. So is there, like, do milkweed need any like sunlight? I mean, like full sunlight, half sunlight? What, is there anywhere that we can plant them? We can just plant them anywhere?
The milkweeds, the butterfly weed and the swamp milkweed need full sun. There's another one that I'm blanking on. They might be a little more for maybe some shade, but basically if you're putting them in the sun, you're doing well. I'm not sure how well you do in shade. And there are different milkweeds, as I said, for different moisture levels. Awesome.
That's a great way to start off the show. I want to help as much as possible. I have a quarter of an acre yard, so I can't really do much. But if I have some friends that I can just go plant some milkweed or throw some milkweed out, I will do that. So,
but your quarter acre, you could do well with butterfly weed in a drier area, or swamp milkweed in the wetter area.
Good. All right. Yeah. Maybe I'll do that in my front yard where it's open.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining me, Marc, from the Mountaintop Arboretum. This is episode 42. Greatly appreciate you joining me. I went up there a couple weeks ago and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Very beautiful place. If you're in the area of Tannersville, just follow up. What route is that? My God, I'm drawing a blank here. What route from Tannersville?
Well, you go up 23C from Tannersville. 23A goes through Tannersville and goes through Hunter and goes down Catterskill Clove. And you just go up the hill on 23C from 23A at the traffic light in Tannersville.
the only traffic light in Tannersville.
Right.
Awesome place. So I'm glad you're here. Really appreciate it. I'd like to thank the monthly subscribers: Darren White, John Comiskey, Jim C., Michael Bogner, Alan Bettencourt, and Sarah Bacon, also Vicky Ferreira. So I always discuss what we're having to drink. It looks like you're having something good to drink. What is it called?
Yes, this is excellent. Am I allowed to plug a product?
Absolutely.
This is, I think it's Red Hill Farm. They make goat yogurt. And this is something I discovered this year. It's a drinkable yogurt. So it's like a kefir, and it's blueberry and pomegranate. And my partner calls it summer eggnog. It is so delicious and addictive.
Oh, man. I was obsessed with eggnog in the winter, so now it looks like I'm going to be obsessed with eggnog in the summer too.
Yeah, it's so good.
Good.
Cool and refreshing.
I'm having a good old rum and Coke. I'm trying to recover after doing a hike in the Adirondacks that I somewhat regret because of how long and how gruesome it was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I went up Phelps Mountain and Marcy, camped overnight, 20 miles. Around 20 miles, about 5,000 feet of elevation gain. It was brutal on my knees. My knees can't handle that shit.
Wow. I guess worse coming down, or?
Oh, yeah. Horrible coming down.
Yeah.
Especially the first day I did Phelps, which is only a 2 mile hike, but in a matter of 2 miles or a 1 mile, it's absolute insane gain. Wow. So coming down with my knees was just horrible. And I seriously, yesterday I just turned 40 years old. So it's showing. It really is.
Do you use hiking poles? I find they help on the way down. Yeah.
Same. I use them. I've heard a lot of my older friends don't use them, and then say they don't help. And I'm just like, man, it helps me stabilize so much better.
It helps me a lot. I hurt my knees skiing a couple years ago, and I bought them just to be, to help me a bit. And if I needed it, and I find it's just so much easier on my knees going downhill using hiking poles. I really like them. Agreed,
man. It's just, I don't know, but yeah, my knees are still sore, but I still went out and mowed the lawn, did everything today. But I summited Marcy, which was great. Right before the summit, I caught sunrise a little bit, and then all of a sudden at the summit I get clouds and fog and everything like that, and 50-mile-an-hour winds. But I couldn't have asked for a better day, 2 days to spend overnight there, maybe mid 50s at night, 70s during the day. I was my pictures. I'll have to share some pictures. It's just absolutely beautiful.
I'd love to see them. Was that were those the days when it was really hot here, or you just got back?
I just got back yesterday afternoon, so it wasn't too hot.
Yeah,
it was perfect. I hit some on the way to Albany. I hit some crazy rainstorms that on the highway we had to slow down to like 40 miles an hour, and people were pulling over and stuff. But it was only a brief 3 minutes. And then it was done, and then clear skies and clouds floating over. It was beautiful, absolutely stunning. Can't beat that drive up to the Adirondacks along Route 9 and Route 73. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, I haven't been up there in a while. I've been too busy here, but so many of my friends go up to the Adirondacks from the Catskills in the summer to get away from the crowds, which is funny because all the New Yorkers are coming up here.
That's true. I was just going to say that. I'm like, wait, they're going to both places, so they're not really getting away from the crowds. Also, so Catskill news. Once again, a lot of volunteer opportunities. Trailhead stewards, Catskill Trail Crew, New York, New Jersey Trail Conference volunteers. Really need volunteers throughout the whole region, throughout the whole state, throughout the whole United States. Anywhere possible you can volunteer, please do it. It would help out tremendously. I'll post all the links in the show notes.
And we by the way, we work with volunteers at the Arboretum too, and they're very important, an important part of the Arboretum, since there are only 3 of us on staff and only 2 of us work outside. So volunteers are really helpful to us too.
Excellent. I'll throw you guys in there for definitely for the future. I'm wrote it down.
Thanks, Steph.
Excellent. Any volunteers possible is great for the Catskills and great for life in general. Also want to congratulate Joe Frederick on completing his Catskill All Trail Challenge. Good job, Joe. Really glad to meet you at the 3500 Club dinner, and good job on completing a challenge that I maybe will complete sometime in my death. Never completed. Excellent. So, Mark, how about we go into a short session of Catskill history?
I'm excited.
Yeah. All right. So this was taken from a book I received from my great friend Dave from the Michael Kudish National Historic Preserve, called Kudish and the Catskills. You can purchase it now. I think only a few were given out at one time, but I think some of them are coming out now. So this is about the lumber companies on Hunter Mountain. So Colonel William Edwards established a New York tannery for the manufacture of leather in Hunter Village in 1817. One of the colonel's main hemlock bark road, built in the early 1840s, headed east from Hunter Village, then south through the Stony Clove Notch. From this main road, smaller bark roads branched off and ascended Hunter and Plateau Mountains. One of the Hunter Mountain branch roads climbs steeply up what is now water supply cistern for the Devil's Tombstone State Campground. It divided in Hemlock Grove into several tributary bark roads. All tributary roads terminated where the hemlocks did, between 2,600 and 2,700 foot levels. The colonel's tannery ran through the mid-1850s, so that all barking in the region was done by that time. Also, the Fenwick Lumber Company of Fenwick, West Virginia, began operations in 1906 and ended in about 1917. These operations are famous for the huge lumber piles and sawmill on the Myrtle Brook Valley, the 2 cable railways, and the 2 high elevation logging camps. Fenwick cut largely spruce and hardwoods from the south and west slopes of Hunter Mountain via the system of log roads, horse-drawn logging railroads, and 2 rail cableways. They did not cut the east slopes of the Hunter Mountain previously barked by Edwards some 70 years before. One of the Fenwick log roads headed east out of Summit Camp, a logging company and cableway head at the site of the present Devil Acre lean-to, following the 3,500-foot contour for 3/4 mile. This old log road is now a segment of the Devil's Path hiking trail. Now, if you're at the Devil's Lean-to and you start descending west down through going down into the Spruceton area, that is where the log chute was. Crazy pictures I've seen from the early days of basically it was a big, huge chute that had water in it that they filled up with water, and it shot down into the Spruceton Valley for buggies or horses to pick up and stuff like that. I don't know if have you ever seen pictures of that, of the Fenwick Company, or even of logging of that height in the Catskills, Mark?
No, I don't think I have, but I read a lot of Mike's stuff, and I know Mike well, but I don't recall pictures, but I love what you're talking about because it's right around where I live. Actually, when I first moved back up here, we were renting right in Stony Clove Notch, and all that barking stuff I know, and it's really interesting. I don't know about the logging of further west into Spruceton as much.
Oh, dude, that whole area, that I remember in one of his books, he said the whole Hunter Mountain, like parcel, all those ridges and stuff was stripped dry of any piece of hardwood or tree possible. It was insane. And I love talking about the Fenwick Logging Company because I could just imagine having a logging company at 3,500 feet in the Catskills, that high, that steep elevation from both sides of Hunter, and having an amazing, massive chute. It basically looked like a big, like I don't know, like a ski jump full of things, and then it would go into a 2-file thing of logs going down all the way into Spruceton Valley. So that's what, 1,400 feet of elevation drop. It's amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Cool stuff. I got to get him on here. I got to reach out to him. I'm lagging on that. I got to reach out to Dr. Kudish.
Oh yeah. He'd be amazing. Oh my God. You could talk to him for a month on here. I'd be fascinated. I'd listen for a month straight.
Yeah. I've been on a hike with him a couple times, and, I was like a little kid just watching him like talk about stuff, random things that he would just walk by and then just crush on the ground and start talking about. I'm like, what is this? And he starts pulling. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah. So I'm glad you'd have to spend time with him too. That's great. I wish everybody could spend time with Dr. Kudish, because they would be much more aware of Mother Earth and how valuable it is to us.
And our history here too. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. The history is absolutely insane here. And that's why I do these little snippets, but I try to get better at it. I'm not a great reader, but I gotta get better at that. So
just slow down a little bit.
Yeah, that's what my wife tells me, but I can't.
Oh, really?
I can't. Yeah. Yeah. She's like, slow the hell down.
You're scared. It's a story you're telling. Pretend you're telling the story to a kid or something like that.
Yeah. All right. That's a good idea. Mark, thanks for the advice. I really appreciate it. So,
sure.
Let's get on to the guest of the night, Marc Wolf from the Mountaintop Arboretum in Tannersville.
Let's go.
Now, I recently visited the Arboretum a couple weeks ago, and I was seriously fascinated by it. Very beautiful place, right up at the top of 23C, which is not too far away. It's only a couple miles away from Tannersville. Not that far at all.
Very close. 2 miles.
Yeah, exactly. So great place to go up and stop and take a nice little walk and look at everything that the Catskills has to offer. They have trees, plants, flowers, artists, like artistic stuff up there. It's really great. So Mark, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, Dash. Thank you very much. Great to be here.
All right. I already know your background because I read your background on your website. Can you give us a little background about yourself, sir?
Sure. I was in the theater and film I had a career doing that. And in the mid 2000s, around 2008, I all of a sudden felt I had to get back out and do work out in nature and environmental work. I had originally gone to college for environmental studies and then sort of took this theater path. So I went to school at New York Botanical Garden for horticulture. I really focused on native plants, and I studied and then worked with a landscape architect named Darryl Morrison, who is really well known out in the Midwest, like rock star in the Midwest. Here he's well known, but he's done gardens at New York Botanical Garden and Brooklyn Botanic Garden, and really uses native plants and environmental landscape design. And he's a landscape architect. So I learned from him and I worked with him. And then the Arboretum was looking for a new executive director right when I was graduating from school, and my partner and I wanted to move back. So it all worked out. And I'm here with a background in horticulture and passion for native plants and how they help the environment.
Excellent. Awesome. That's so great. It's great to have you here in the Catskills. Trust me. We're happy to have you. As you said, you specialize in horticulture. I am not the greatest with horticulture. So can you explain to me and your listeners of what horticulture is and why you got into that?
Well, horticulture really is taking care of plants. How do you propagate plants? How do you raise plants? How do you deal with pests and disease? How do you keep them alive and happy? Sometimes that's may just be leaving them alone. Botany is more the study of plants and the science of plants, but horticulture is really about working with plants and maintaining plants for often for beauty, but more and more for habitat health and environmental health. So it's that simple.
It shows a big difference between, because I follow a bunch of people with botanists and online, and basically it's just they're just showing you what this is and what that is, what this is. They're not showing you how to take care of this, how to plant this, where you should plant this, how it will help and stuff like that. They just basically name what the plant is and then walk away to another plant.
Well, I love botany. I think you're shortchanging botanists. I took some botany classes. I love botany. I'm fascinated by botany. But you're right. But the horticulture is more about where to plant them, how to care for them, where will they do well. But of course, botanists will know where they live naturally. A good botanist would, yeah. And that's what a good horticulturist does, is understands where they occur naturally, because that's going to be the best place to try and grow them.
Awesome. Yeah. I got this guy I follow. It's on Facebook. It's called Crime Pays, but Botany Doesn't. It's so weird because, I would just watch it in the earlier times. I would watch it without turning on the sound, and he sounded like a smart guy. I turned on the sound, and he's a guy from deep in Long Island or New York City or New Jersey. His accent is the thickest. He will speak like it. He's like, look at this shit right here. Look at this. He's like, this is Paquatinus Magunas. He's like, it only grows in the desert. And I'm just laughing so hard, but he knows his stuff. But it's just really cool to watch horticulture and botanists, because being only my little quarter of an acre yard, my wife has gotten me into the flowers and plants and stuff like that. And my yard has gone from a grass yard into now what is more flowers and plants and stuff. And I guarantee it's going to be full of that. So
great. My yard is all meadow.
Good.
That's one of the first things we did. We took up all the grass, the lawn, and we seeded wildflower and grass, a native grass meadow. And it's still coming in. We're in the third year.
Good. And it's thriving right now, right? This is where it's
doing pretty. I got to tell you, something confused me. Last year we had, was the rainiest year on record. I don't know if on record, but it was just so rainy. It may have been the rainiest. And so I was like, oh my God, these plants, I thought this was a dry spot, but it's actually a wet spot. And now this year we're in a drought here on the mountaintop here in Tannersville. Now I realize, it actually was a dry spot. So, the weather and climate change is making gardening more difficult, because not only do you have to, maybe water plants more during a drought, or they're getting flooded out, but I'm finding it harder and harder to predict what is this a dry spot or a wet spot, even especially this season now and last season. Yeah. I said something before. I realized I made a small mistake, but it's important. I said, when you see a plant, a good horticulturist sees where a plant's growing in nature, and that's the kind of place you want to plant it, when you're gardening. But a lot of plants say will grow in deep shade in nature only because that's the only place they're competitive. They can't outcompete the sun-loving plants there. But you could use that plant and you could nurture it in full sun, say, even though in nature it only occurs in the shade. So that's not the case all the time, but with good gardening practice, you can bring plants out into the sun that might only occur in the shade or in really rocky areas, only because they're less competitive with other plants when they get into good garden soil. But it doesn't mean they can't exist and thrive in good garden soil, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Awesome. So let's talk about the Arboretum. What is an Arboretum?
An Arboretum is basically just a public garden or botanical garden that focuses more on woody plants, and woody means trees and shrubs. So basically an Arboretum is a botanical garden that focuses more on trees and shrubs. In a botanical garden, you have plant labels, there's some amount of research that's being done and plant recording that's being done so that you have a record of the plants you have and you're teaching, you're showing people what plants are what. So you're labeling plants. Basically, that's a botanical garden in the simple terms.
Excellent. So what is the Mountaintop Arboretum? What is the purpose of the Mountaintop Arboretum? Of course, to teach and stuff. Is there anything else?
Yeah, our purpose, well, the original mission was three-pronged: to educate and be there for the pleasure of the public. And pleasure is important. The beauty of these plants, that is part of it, and the education, and practice excellent horticulture, and be a representative of the region for these plants. Now, it started originally, the Arboretum started as experimenting with cold hardiness of different trees from all around the world. It started in the 70s. But over time, and definitely that's why I'm here, it's become native plant focused, and pretty much anything we plant now is a native plant, or specifically a Catskill native plant.
Excellent. That goes over my my one question that I had about the history. So you guys started in the 1970s. Anything else you want to add to that?
Well, it started with 6 acres by Pete and Bonnie Aarons. They had a summer home overlooking this kind of scrubby, unused 6 acres that was owned by Onteora Club, which they were members of. And they bought it from the club for $1. And they brought in cleared the land, bought in a lot of topsoil, it was kind of worthless, and started collecting trees from all over the world. Now, he was on the board at New York Botanical Garden, Pete, and Bonnie was very involved with I don't think it was the New York Fern Society or the National Fern Society, but they were both intense plants people. And he was a research physician. So physician. So they were meticulous with record keeping and really tried to do this scientifically. The Catskills, our site is very heavy soil, silt to silt clay, not well drained. So they were really also experimenting not only with cold hardiness, but poor soil. And their idea was to push the limits of trees and see if they could live at 2,400 foot elevation. So a lot of the trees died. A lot of trees that are still here aren't doing well. But it was their passion that drove this kind of crazy experiment. And it grew over time to 10 acres. And then Dr. Aarons passed away in 2000, and the Arboretum got another 15 acres, and then it got another 150 acres. So this little 6 acres is now 178 acres over time. And what I get out of that is, if you have an idea and you have enough friends with money to help you get that idea through, no matter how crazy it is, you never know where it's going to go. Right. And these institutions that we take for granted, let's say the Catskill Center or the New York Public Library in New York City, they were started by us, by people. And it takes a lot of will, but passion, and you can really make something happen. So there's my little lesson. You get a little lesson every 10 minutes.
No, that's okay. That's great. That's what this is about. This is what the podcast is about. As I like to make education and, like you said, lessons and stuff like that about the Catskills. I never knew this stuff. That's what makes it great for me and hopefully for the listeners, that they learn something new about the Catskills every time. And I want them to learn something new about the Catskills. And that is incredible. Like, that is so cool that they experimented. They're like, oh, this can't grow here. This can't grow here. And then they realized that, oh, wow, of course, the only native stuff can grow here.
Well, there's stuff that's non-native that's doing well, but they were really trying. Like, let's say they said, for your listeners, plants are, say, like how cold it is divided into zones. So a zone 4 plant can survive in zone 4. It's got has a certain cold hardiness. A zone 5 plant can't grow in zone 4 as well, or struggles. Zone 6 is warmer and warmer. So they were taking zone 6 plants and planting them up at the Arboretum, which was in the 70s, was more of a zone 4-5. Mm-hmm. So they were really not interested in the beauty. They were just interested in survival, which is a funny way to start an arboretum. So yeah,
that's pretty neat stuff. I got to admit, so they basically were scientists at the time, and just doing experiments all the time. Cool. Absolutely wicked. See, I never knew about that. You should put that on your website. Like the whole full thing. We're going to record this.
I know,
and put it on your website.
Yeah.
So what are some native plants in the Catskills that we can find? Just either about anywhere or more of the more seen plants.
Well,
or trees.
We have a native tree trail at the Arboretum that we just started this year, and there are 33 species of trees native to the Catskills that are on our trail. So you could come follow the trail. We have a brochure. You can walk along. And I mean, the big main ones is that what you're asking me? Like the ones, real? Yeah. The conifers are eastern hemlock, which we all love, red spruce, which I love, eastern white pine, red pine, balsam fir. Balsam fir is a real mountaintop plant, and we have them growing at the Arboretum naturally. And if you're down in the valleys, like if you're down, say in Woodstock, Phoenicia, you're not going to see balsam fir. Yep. You'll see sycamores down there, and you won't see any sycamores up here. But sycamores are also a native plant that you'll see a lot hiking more in the bottomlands. And then, sugar maple, which is another crowd favorite, red maple. There's a lot of striped maple around up here, which is a plant I'm always singing the praises of, which a lot of people don't like. It's a small understory tree. And mountain maple, which doesn't have as beautiful bark as striped maple, but it grows at high elevations, and it's got a maple-like leaf, but not really a maple-like flower. Striped maple and mountain maple have more flowers that are in chain, like drooping chains. Well, mountain maples stick straight up, and striped maples hang down. Then we have all the birches, yellow birch,
white
paper birch, gray birch, aspens, quaking aspen, and big tooth aspen.
I'm gonna need a tour of this to identify all this stuff, because my God.
Yep. Well, we do have like I said, our native tree trail is great, and we just did the official opening of Memorial Day, and we have little brochures. And on our website, Will Lytle, who's Thorn Eater, he did little leaf drawings for us. And nice. On our website, you can go to native trees, and there's beautiful little drawings and just a little snippet about each native tree. So that'll whet your appetite to come visit or go on a hike.
Is that the new trail that leads all the way down to the swamp bog area?
The native tree trail sort of wanders on the already existing trails.
Okay.
But it does take you to the Emerald Bog. Mm-hmm.
That's
but not all the way to the Hidden Marsh.
Ooh, I forgot.
Did you go to Hidden Marsh?
I think I did. Was that with the platform walk?
Yeah, there's a boardwalk that goes out into the marsh about 40 feet.
That was stunning. What a great place.
Yeah, I feel like it's like you're on Cape Cod or something with that big marshland, but you're surrounded by mountains.
Yeah. I seriously was just like, I was just like, oh, look at this. And I like walked out to the middle and I was just like, wow. Took a 360-degree photo, and it was like, it's one of those spear photos. So you can like
Mhm.
turn whatever way you want and see everything. So I'll have to share that with you.
Yeah, send that to me. And we have cool plants in there too. We have carnivorous plants in Hidden Marsh. They're called sundew, and they're tiny. They're about a quarter inch big. If you lie down on the boardwalk and look in the sphagnum moss, you can see them. They're like literally look like little ruby jewels. And they open, and they have like little tiny sticky hairs that are more beautiful than sticky hairs. They're really beautiful. And then the plants the insects, like the little gnats and things, because these are really tiny plants, get stuck in there, and then the plant digests them.
Small Venus flytrap.
Especially for kids. Yeah, it's a small carnivorous plant. Yep.
Wow. There's so much to know about this. This is excellent. Okay. Like, you got to teach me about this, and then I got a guide up here and just be like, look at this. That's what I want to see. It's almost like you're almost like Dr. Kudish right now. Is just like,
that's my dream. That's my goal.
And it's working. It's truly working. You're doing it, because like right now I'm just like, I'm going back. I'm going to go see all this stuff. Like, it's incredible. All right. So can you explain? I've always wondered this. I'm not a botanist or horticulture or any person that knows plants or trees or stuff like that, as well as a lot of other people. Can you explain for me and for the listeners between deciduous trees and coniferous trees? I've always wondered this.
The difference between deciduous trees and coniferous trees?
Yeah.
I'm going to blow your mind, Stash.
Good.
You ready?
Yes.
There are coniferous trees that are deciduous.
Done.
Have I blown your mind?
Done. I don't want to.
So what's the difference? Deciduous means that a tree loses its leaves in the winter. That's what deciduous means. And coniferous trees are cone-bearing trees. So we all think, typically coniferous trees, we also call them evergreen trees, because the hemlocks, the spruce, what was the other one I said? Oh, the firs, the pines, they keep their needles all the time. They're evergreen. And they're coniferous because they're cone-bearing. There is a native tree to the Catskills, although it's very, very, very rare in the Catskills. It exists more up in the Adirondacks, but also out in Massachusetts, called larch, tamarack. Now, larch is a coniferous tree. In the summer, it looks like it could be a pine tree. It's got needles, but it loses them in the winter. So it's a deciduous conifer tree. So that's really all deciduous means, is that loses its leaves in the winter. But the big difference between coniferous and what we think of as deciduous trees is just that coniferous trees their flowers are basically the cones, and angiosperms, which is the other trees, have true flowers. So, the maples, the birches, they're angiosperms. It just means that they don't have cones like the coniferous trees. But typically we say deciduous trees are all the trees that have leaves, and the coniferous trees are all the trees with needles that are evergreen. But there are some trees that lose their needles, so they're coniferous, and they're deciduous conifers.
Actually, I know about the larches because I went up to Western Canada in the Canadian Rockies, and I saw them. Absolutely stunning.
We have two larches, native larches at the Arboretum, and they're beautiful, beautiful tree. I love deciduous conifer trees. We actually have three. As far as I know, there are 4 different deciduous conifers. There's the larch we just talked about. There's something called pseudolarch, and then there's a really cool tree called dawn redwood, which is, again, it's a coniferous tree. It has cones, but it loses its needles in the winter. And then we have bald cypress, which is native to the southeast, and we have that at the Arboretum too. So we have three different species of deciduous conifers. And what's cool about them is when they go kind of cinnamony, beautiful cinnamony brown colors in the fall. They're gorgeous. Then they lose the needles, and when their needles come out in the spring, they're so soft and bright green, really different than the evergreen, conifers, and they're so beautiful.
Yeah. So there's another reason why not just to tour the Arboretum once, but many times in a year. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So one of the cool things I like to do nowadays, because I'm getting older, I told this to my wife, that I'm getting older as I want to hear birds and I want to see birds. Mm-hmm. You get older when you start wanting to do that. So
now people say that's an old person's thing, but I know so many young people that are old birders, but then they say, well, they have old souls.
Yeah, exactly. So like one of the most amazing songs I've ever heard from a bird, from anything in life, is of course the thrush. I remember walking through there, and I will tell anybody that I walk with to shut up if the thrush is singing, because you've got to listen to it sing. What type of birds can we spot at the Arboretum? I know there's the thrush. Is there anything else that is kind of unique?
Yeah, we have the hermit thrush. We might have the wood thrush. I can't really tell their calls apart. My favorite one is the veery, which is a thrush also. It's a veery thrush. And the thrushes, they don't have a larynx, but whatever they have instead of a larynx, it's split. And that's why you hear that sort of double note at the same time. It's so mysterious and beautiful.
It sounds like I always say it sounds like a xylophone. Like it's just so weird.
Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful.
Yep.
We are a birding hotspot.
Nice.
Which do you know what that is? I mean, it's something with Audubon Society, and we're registered. You can go on to the is it iNaturalist or it's eBird, and like go to the Arboretum. And if you like to bird, we have a whole birding checklist, a pamphlet at the Arboretum, so you could walk around and check off the birds that you're hearing. I mean, I don't know, 100 birds that have been sighted there. I think a rare one is the pine siskin.
Oh, wow.
But especially in, late May, early June, we have all the migrating birds come through. We have a lot of warblers, Baltimore orioles, but actually Baltimore orioles and a lot of warblers are actually coming to the Arboretum to nest and raise their young. So they're migrating and they get as far as we are, and then are at our altitude. It's as if they're further north. Oh, we have bluebirds, indigo bunting, although I didn't see one this year. Ovenbirds, like I said, lots of warblers, cedar waxwings. I mean, we just have lots and lots.
Oh, the good old screech of the blue jays and stuff.
Blue jays, the vireos. There's the I'm not going to remember. There's the black-eyed green vireo. There's the green-eyed black vireo. There's the red-eyed blue vireo.
Yeah, the blue-eyed vireo.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that I recently saw actually at my sister's house, which is in the middle of the town, that I've never seen before, is I saw a bluebird for the first time in my life.
Oh,
and wow,
oh really?
What a beautiful bird.
Such an intense blue. Beautiful.
Yeah. But
the indigo bunting is even bluer. It's like
God.
azure blue. Yeah.
I gotta see this. So I'm gonna, every time I come up there, I gotta stop up there every time now.
And you know about Merlin, the app that Merlin has?
No, I don't.
Oh, it's so good. It you can hold your phone up and it will tell you what bird you're hearing.
Oh, and yes, I do have that. BirdNet.
Merlin bird. Yeah, it's great.
Yes. That's how I identify birds. The only one I can identify, of course, is the blue jays, the cardinals, and the thrushes. I seriously, my wife and I were hiking one time, and she was like 100 yards ahead of me. And she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "Quiet, the thrush is singing." Yeah. And then she's like, "What?" And then she heard it. She's like, "Oh my God, that's beautiful." I'm like, "Exactly. This is why I hike."
Yeah.
But excellent. So that's a bird hotspot. Excellent. Once again,
yeah, we really are. I mean, of course, I'm forgetting so many of them, but We have lots of bird walks too. I think we did 3 bird walks this year.
Sweet. Excellent. I'll have to post them every time on my site. So do you know, I remember you were talking about this email. Do you know if different trees attract different birds, or is it just the migration period?
I had reached out to one of our birders, Larry Fetterman, with your question because you had asked me about that before. In our forest, we have generalist birds that the insect eating birds are generalists. So they don't care about the tree. They don't need a specific tree. We have some species of birds, and this is all from Larry, that prefer conifers. And then there are other species that exist only in the boreal forest, which is that northern conifer forest, right? Mostly conifer forest.
Yeah, like the thrush.
Northern hemisphere. But so we don't have birds that are specific to one tree in our area. But we do at the Arboretum, we've planted what we call the bird covert. We've planted it with a lot of native shrubs that are important for habitat and provide forage too, and with all the fruit that they produce, whether it's blueberries or the viburnums have all sorts of berries, dogwoods have all sorts of berries, winterberry, which is in the holly family. So there's lots of shrubs that we've planted, and you can come, and look at those. And then what's really important, and Larry emphasized this to me, which is why this shrub, the bird cove is mostly shrubs, is this shrub layer or a young forest layer that's next to the mature forest. So there are levels. What's really important for birds is that there are levels of vertically of, the small perennials to the shrubland, the small shrubs, the taller shrubs, the lower woodland trees, the upper, then the canopy trees. And a heavily deer browsed area is not good for birds because you're going to miss that middle and lower layer. Mm-hmm. So when you're thinking about what to plant, you should be thinking in layers. And also what's really important and what the Arboretum has is an intact forest, not to break up your forest so that there's a patch here and a patch here and a patch there, but that all together, if we all let our trees grow or plant trees, they're going to make up a contiguous forest, which is much more beneficial for bird life.
Nice. Excellent. Good. I love it. I love all the info. I'm just like absorbing it all, and hopefully I can remember all this. I'm probably a little bit of it. But one of the biggest topics has been in the Catskills and in pretty much the eastern half of the United States has been the emerald ash borer. I remember being on the 3500 Club committee and hearing a lot about this. It is eating away at certain trees. Can you talk to us about the emerald ash borer and what it is and what it's doing?
The emerald ash borer is an insect. It's a beetle, and it bores into ash trees, and it lays its eggs in there, and then the larvae hatch, and they eat all the phloem, which is what's bringing nutrition up from the roots up to the foliage in the tree. It's basically the food. It's the transport system for what the tree uses as food, and the larvae eat that. And then when they hatch, they exit, and then they hatch, and then they fly away and mate again. And they're destroying ash populations throughout the country. And it's most people know about this. It's really sad. Ash are really important. I think they're beautiful trees. And they're important trees, and they're going the way of the chestnut and the elm. And what we're doing at the Arboretum is we're studying about 200 ash trees. 150 of them are being injected with a pesticide. every 3 years. And with Cornell, we're studying the effectiveness of this treatment. So right now we've saved 150, and 50 of them are control trees that are not being injected. And we're seeing that those are dying.
That sucks.
So the scary what happens when all the ash are gone? Will the borer adapt to a different tree?
That will thrive.
That's a fear. Or will its population crash and then the ash comes back because there's seed bank in the soil, and people are doing good work collecting seed and storing seed for the day when the borer might be gone, or when the borer has a natural predator.
Yeah, it was a big topic. Like seeing pictures of the side of a mountain, you can easily tell where the emerald ash borer was destroying those trees, and it sucks, and it's happening all over the place, and you can easily tell sometimes in the Catskills. So if any of the listeners are out there and you come upon a viewpoint or stuff like that, and you see basically a white patch of trees that look like they're dying, is probably because of the emerald ash borer. And it's a big study here on the East Coast, and like you said, in the United States and probably the world, of what we can do to stop it. So that's great that the Arboretum is working with Cornell on how to stop this, because what an evil kind of freaking thing to have in this world, to kill trees. That it's just evil. It's very evil.
Well, the emerald ash borer, it's Asian. It was somehow it got here, and where it lives naturally, the trees are adapted to survive with it. So there's whether the trees have a resistance or whether the borer has a natural predator, it's where it evolved with its own trees. It kills some trees, but a lot of trees keep going. And then, it's probably just a perfectly healthy part of that ecosystem, but outside of its own ecosystem, because it was imported accidentally, it doesn't have any checks on its voraciousness. So our trees are dying in mass numbers.
Yeah. And that's why we do not buy camping logs and stuff like that from other counties and stuff and transport to different counties, because that county might have a species that's going to kill stuff in the other counties. So remember that when you pick up your firewood and your other wood like that. So once again, also, so Marc, the hemlock woolly, how do you say that?
Adelgid. Adelgid. Yeah. Okay.
Let's talk about that. You wanted to talk about that. That's something new I want to learn about.
Well, that's I think a bigger concern for us in the Catskills than the ash is the hemlock woolly adelgid, and the reason is because the ash are not a climax forest species. So ash are somewhere between a pioneer and come in after the pioneer. So when there's a big disturbance, whether it's man-caused or landslide or fire or ice or wind blowdown, paper birch, quaking aspen come in, eastern white pine come in, and then when they start to establish, then you'll get red maple and ash and some other sort of secondary species, black cherry. And then as the forest matures, you're going to get your shade tolerant species like sugar maple, beech, yellow birch, slightly shade tolerant, and hemlock and spruce. And those are your climax forest species. So those are the species that are at the end stage. That forest is going to exist forever unless there's a disturbance again. And that's why the adelgid is so scary in the Catskills, because if we lose our hemlocks, as they have lost their hemlocks down south of here, from New York all the way down to the Carolinas, we really lose whole ecosystems. We lose the shade. The famous thing is the shade for the trout, the native trout that are here.
Oh,
because
yeah.
The hemlocks keep the stream so cool. And, the hemlock's gone. We're going to lose mountainsides and erosion, and we'll see what happens. And there's this bug, which is this little white thing that pierces and chews at the base of the hemlock needles. And it's kind of a fascinating thing that happens. It's autoimmune. It's an autoimmune response that the hemlocks have. They think they're getting attacked, and they drop their needles in response. So the bug isn't killing them the way it kills the emerald ash borer, kills the ash. The bug is causing the hemlocks to defoliate themselves.
Yeah, shed itself.
Yeah, and then they die very quickly in a couple of years. And big trees can go fast. So Cornell, again, Marc Whitmore, who's studying the ash with us, he's working very hard with the New York State Hemlock Initiative to find a successful predator to introduce.
Why haven't I heard this about this lately? Why have I heard more of the emerald ash borer and not the hemlock woolly?
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. I think it's because ash trees are more of a street tree in towns and cities, and municipalities are losing their ash and having to cut down their ash, and it's costing cities a lot of money. But I don't think hemlock is really a street tree. It really needs cooler weather, and it's probably more finicky with pollution. So maybe that's why. But I don't know. But hemlock is scarier, I think, for the Catskills.
Of course.
And because they, and for New York City with the water, we supply water, and we lose our hemlocks. There are a lot more hemlocks up here than there are ash trees.
Of course.
They, as I said, they really are the definition of that climax forest.
Well, they also, you said about the trout streams and stuff like that. They thrive in where other trees cannot thrive. Mm-hmm. Like on the sides of streams, on the sides of steep, tall mountains, the hemlocks stay there, which is, it's great. You see them up in the Adirondacks, you see them down here on the steep sides of the mountains, steep sides of the creeks, stuff like that. So, that is a huge deal. That is a massive deal, because they, like you said, they keep the cool streams cool. They keep them clean, really, because they cover them.
Yeah.
Wow.
And their roots hold back the sediment.
Yep. Wow. That is a huge topic. I'm going to have to look into that and start drilling that into people's heads that I can, which I haven't known.
Yeah.
But excellent. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because Marc, I had no clue about that. That is a huge topic now. So about like the Catskills, what is the most interesting species you've come across in the Catskills?
Homo sapiens.
What are the most destructive? Sorry. No, I'm just kidding. Besides Homo sapiens.
Well, I don't know. What's the most, there's I would say that carnivorous plant in Hidden Marsh is a really interesting species. I don't know if it's most interesting, but I'm continually fascinated by yellow birch.
Yeah.
Yellow birch is the tree that, because of its roots, it looks like it's climbing. It looks like it's eating boulders. It's like an octopus, the way And oftentimes they're stilted up. They're like 4 or 5 feet. The tree is 4 or 5 feet off the ground, with all its roots going down from 4 or 5 feet down into the ground, because they germinate often on logs. And if a big old tree fell down and this yellow birch germinated on it, then when the tree finally decomposes, the yellow birch roots are still there, as if the tree were still underneath it. Or I've seen big boulders like go roll out from under a birch, and they're halfway gone and the birch is still hanging on to them. But they're so alive to me, and you can sort of start telling the story of what happened and where it's going, and the way they reach for nutrients in the soil, how they can grip to the sides of mountains too. I just love them, and I'm always stopping to look at them.
Yeah. I got to admit, those are the birches are the ones to thrive in difficult situations. Like if they get blown over, they'll continue to grow. They'll dig their roots and they'll be like sideways with their hands. I always call them
Yeah.
hands because that's what they look like. They look like they grab the boulder and just like, screw you. I'm gonna live while you try to take over.
Yeah.
Beautiful
Yeah.
stuff. Good point. That's a very good point. I amongst the Catskills, one of my favorites is the ferns. I love the fern glades.
Yeah.
It's just dreamily in the smell and everything. I just love that stuff.
Yeah. They're beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Timber Frame Education Center, you brought this up. You want to tell me
Oh,
about
right.
that?
Yeah. Did you go inside the building?
I was that the building like
The
right at
timber
the
frame?
beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. Yeah. So it's only 4 years old, and we went into the Arboretum's forest with the landscape architect. I mean, not the landscape architect, the timber frame architect, and the timber framer, and the millers, the guys that were going to mill these pieces. And we picked out trees that were going to fit the architect's design. So we have 21 different species of trees from the Arboretum's forest, not 21 trees, but 21 different species that we chose to fit the design. And you can see what each of these species looks like as a piece of timber. And they're sculpted. They're each a piece of sculpture, the way they hold up the building. They're carved beautifully. And you really feel like you're inside a forest, the way they arch up and hold the roof up. So it's a beautiful, beautiful building.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting idea. Who came up with that idea? That's incredible.
I think it was the former chair of the board, Larry McCaffrey, and he's the one that really drove the building of the education center. Or he might have been talking to Jack Sobon, who is the timber frame architect, and maybe they said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did it this way?" I don't know of another building
Yeah, right.
made with 21 different species.
That is very, very unique. That's one of a kind, definitely.
And then Jack made a key. So we have these, you come in and there's a key you can walk around with, and it has a picture of the rooms. And then each timber in the picture has a number on it, and that relates to one of the trees. So you can see which tree is which in the building.
Very,
and
very
we even, some trees, aren't going to hold up a building very well, like musclewood or hop hornbeam. These are small understory trees, but we use them more as decorative, pieces in the frame itself.
Mm-hmm. Wicked. That is a crazy idea. That's really cool.
It's really cool, and it's only 4 years old, so not it's not a lot of people have seen it. I mean, a lot of people have seen it, but there are a lot more people to see it.
Yeah, it's definitely unique. I remember seeing it. Looks brand new, basically. Yeah. So besides the Arboretum, where's your most favorite place in the Catskills?
Oh, wow.
That's a tough one, right? There's so many.
Yeah. It's so funny. I feel like everybody has a different favorite place.
That's why I do this.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I have to say there's a bushwhack that I do that's kind of near where I live. And we go up there and we call it the Grotto. It's up a little stream, and you get up there and all of a sudden it's this trickling waterfall. It's probably about 30 feet, and it just trickles down into a pool, and it's really dark and beautiful. And I love going up there with my dog, and just hanging out there. So it's our secret place.
Yeah. The secret places are always the best.
Yeah.
So how can we support the Arboretum?
Oh, well, we are a membership public nonprofit foundation, and you could join, and that would help us a lot. Become a member and come to our programs. You can support us if you go to our website, and we have really, really great programs. Like in 2 weeks, the executive director from Olana is coming to talk to us about Frederick Church, who owned Olana, the great the great Hudson River school painter, and how he was inspired by the forests and how he planted Olana as a native forest. And then, so Sean's going to talk, and then we're going to walk out to our hemlock grove, which is so beautiful in our forest. And we're just going to talk about how that would have inspired Frederick Church. And we have mushroom walks, and like I said, bird walks. We have a wildflower arrangement program coming up in August. We have story time walks for kids. We really have good programming. So just come and come to a program and visit us. And then I mentioned earlier, volunteers are very important for us, and we have a really great volunteer crew that gardens, and we have people that help us, do mailings and things like that. So it's a great community, and there's lots of ways to help. And visit our website. Yeah.
Visit the website. When you go there, donate. There's a little box off to the side. When you walk into the left, you can donate whatever you want.
I should say when we're open. The grounds are open dawn to dusk every day of the year, and the building's open Tuesday through Saturday, 9 to 4. And it's a suggested donation, but really there's nobody there spying on you to make sure you make that donation. It really is just a suggested donation.
Excellent. Got any, you just basically mentioned any events of coming up. You can probably go look at the website for events, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So good. Any huge special events coming up that we could talk about real quick?
Well, the Olana one, and then every Labor Day weekend, a Sunday of every Labor Day weekend, we do an author talk. So a new book that's come out, we invite the author to come speak. We've had really wonderful speakers in the past, and this year we have two wonderful speakers, husband and wife, that run Hortus Conclusus, which is a botanical garden in Stone Ridge, and they just came out with a book on cold hardy fruit and nut shrubs and trees, and a lot of what they're talking about are native. So I asked them to come and speak, and they've done a program for us before, totally different program that was great, and we really liked them. And so that's Labor Day weekend. So just check out our website.
Excellent. So cool. I'll write that down in the show notes. All right. So let's, I don't know if I've told you about this, but I have a thing called from Mary T, a listener that said post hike brews and bites. Got any suggestions for a place to get a brew or a something to eat after a hike? Name off anything that you love.
Tannersville is really becoming quite the foodie scene. There's a great wine shop now called Elevated that's between Hunter and Tannersville. If you're done hiking, there's a great new restaurant called Tabla. There's Jesse's Harvest House. These are great places for a drink or food. There's Deer Mountain Inn, which is really great if it's open that day. You can sit in the bar and just have a drink and some nibbles. And then they have a more formal menu. And then there's another new place down by Rip Van Winkle Lake in Tannersville called the Boathouse, which has like fried shrimp, fried like fish and chips, clam chowder, that kind of thing. And then in town, there's Last Chance Steak Cheese, which is great for food and drink. And then, of course, there's always Mama's Boy for a burger and ice cream, which is great. So there's a lot of places I love to go. Yeah.
These will all be in the show notes, by the way. I will suggest Tito's Bandinos over in Pine Hill. Amazing Mexican restaurant. I go there sometimes for awesome tacos and awesome fajitas afterwards. So,
we have a good Mexican in Tannersville too called Pancho Villa's.
Yes, I've been there. Awesome, good stuff.
Really good.
Excellent. Well, Mark, thank you for joining me. I'd like to thank the sponsors for sponsoring Inside the Land of Catskills. Really appreciate you guys. Really appreciate anybody who's donated. Donate to the Arboretum if you can. Go check out the Arboretum if you can. Thank you to everyone who is listening. Subscribe on any platform. Look me up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Definitely have a website. If you have the time, shoot me a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you use. Check out the Mountaintop Arboretum's website. Mark, I don't know if you want to add any more plugins that you want to add here. Does the Mountaintop Arboretum have an Instagram or a Facebook page?
Yeah, we do. Mountaintop Arboretum on Instagram.
Excellent.
And I don't remember what our Facebook page is, but search for us. Yeah, just Google us and you'll find our website. Yeah.
Excellent. Marc, thank you for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it, sir.
Thanks, Stash. I really appreciate being here.
Hey, have a good night.
You too.